All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to this explainer, where we take complex, profound texts and make them crystal clear. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating piece of ancient wisdom, which is Chapter 17 of the Bhagavad Gita. It's also known as the Yoga of the Three Kinds of Faith. Now, I know when a lot of us hear ancient scriptures, we instantly picture rigid dogmas or, dusty lists of mystical rules. But what we're actually looking at today is a timeless, razor-sharp psychological guide. It's an incredibly deep dive into human intention, behavior, and what fundamentally makes us tick. If you've ever stopped to wonder why you do the things you do or what makes a good deed actually good, well, you are absolutely in the right place.
To really grasp the weight of this knowledge, we have to ground ourselves in the setting. Picture Krishna and Arjuna having this intense conversation. And they aren't sitting in some peaceful, quiet ashram. They are literally in the middle of a battlefield, parked on a chariot, pausing right before the massive, catastrophic war of Kurukshetra. It's in this incredibly high-stakes, pressure cooker environment that this profound philosophical dialogue drops. Arjuna is going through a massive crisis, and it's not just about whether to fight or not. He's wrestling with the very nature of human duty, intention, and faith itself.
So let's get into the core of his dilemma. What matters more, strictly following the exact step-by-step scriptural rules, or having a totally pure faith and good intention, even if you kind of miss the memo on the rules? It's such a relatable, deeply human conflict, right? The classic letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. Arjuna is essentially asking Krishna, look, what happens to the people who toss out the strict rulebooks but still act with massive genuine faith? Are they doing good, or are they just entirely misguided? To answer that, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to explore 1. Arjuna's dilemma, 2. The three gunas, 3. The danger of ego, 4. Sacrifice and charity, 5. Body, speech, and mind, and finally, 6. Om Tat Sat and Asat. Section 1. Arjuna's Dilemma, Rules versus Faith.
What is so wild about the original source text here is that these ancient Sanskrit verses aren't just pretty poetic philosophy, they're highly structured taxonomy of the human mind. In the very first verse of chapter 17, Arjuna asks Krishna point blank about those folks who worship with deep faith but totally ignore the scriptural injunctions. He wants to know their spiritual status. He literally asks, is it sattva, rajas, or tamas? And Krishna's answer isn't a simple yes or no. Actually, Krishna explains that the faith of all embodied beings is born from their innate nature. Meaning, faith isn't just a hat you put on. It's a direct reflection of who you fundamentally are on the inside.
Which brings us to Section 2, the three gunas, nature of the mind. According to the texts, our material nature is woven from 3 distinct strands, or qualities, called the gunas. Let's compare the top 2, because these are what drive most of our active daily lives. On one hand, we have sattva. This is characterized by illumination, truth, and absolute purity of being. A sattvic intention is pure and totally selfless. On the flip side, we have rajas. Rajas is all about hustle. It's fueled by passion, energy, and intense desire. A rajasic intention is driven almost entirely by ego and the craving for a reward. There's also a third guna, tamas, representing darkness, ignorance, and laziness. Every single one of us is a unique cocktail of these 3 gunas. Whichever one is driving the bus completely dictates your lifestyle. It dictates your faith, your actions, and yes, even the very food you prefer. Sattvic folks naturally gravitate toward pure, fresh foods that increase vitality. Rajasic types, they crave intensely spicy, sour, or salty foods that actually cause bodily distress. And Tamasic individuals lean toward foods that are stale or impure. It's literally all connected. And this matrix brilliantly illustrates how these psychological states manifest out there in the real world. Your innate guna dictates exactly what you revere. People with sattvic faith, rooted in goodness, naturally worship the gods, those higher divine principles. Those driven by rajasic faith, rooted in passion and the desire for power, well, they worship demigods and demons, beings of force and wealth. And those trapped in tamasic faith, rooted in darkness, worship ghosts and spirits. It's fascinating. Your faith is basically a mirror held up to your psychological condition.
Moving on to Section 3, the danger of ego, destructive practices.
Now, Krishna issues a huge, stark warning here about people who perform intense religious disciplines totally outside of scriptural guidance. He describes them as, and I quote, men who undergo terrible austerities accompanied by hypocrisy and egotism
desire, passion, and force. The text points out that these people essentially torture the elements of their own bodies, and in doing so, they disrespect the divine spark within themselves. This is a massive red flag, showing us the sheer danger of an ego-driven life. No matter how disciplined or super pious an action might look to the rest of the world, if the internal engine running it is just hypocrisy and ego, the text says it is fundamentally demonic in nature.
Let's look at Section 4, Sacrifice and Charity. Intentions matter. This is where it gets highly practical for our daily routines. The text breaks down acts of sacrifice, known as yajna, and charity, known as dana. Notice how the exact same physical action changes entirely based on the hidden intention behind it. A sattvic sacrifice is done according to scripture by someone who doesn't desire any personal reward whatsoever. They do it simply because it is the right thing to do. Boom, done. But a Rajasic sacrifice? That is performed purely for ostentation. It's to show off, with the direct intention of getting a reward or a pat on the back. The same exact logic applies to charity. Sattvic charity is giving selflessly to a worthy person at the right time and place. Rajasic charity is giving reluctantly, or giving specifically so you can get a favor, a tax write-off, or personal honor in return. The action is just the vehicle, right? The intention is the driver.
Section 5, Body, Speech, and Mind, Personal Discipline. So, the source text outlines 3 distinct domains of austerity, or what we'd call self-discipline today. Step 1 is the body. This involves physical purity, rectitude, nonviolence, and honoring the wise. Simple enough. Step 2 is speech. I love this one. The text beautifully describes this as speaking words that are truthful, agreeable, and, this is a big one, not causing distress to others. You can be honest without being brutal. It also involves reciting sacred texts. Then step 3 is the mind. This is the practice of mental peace, gentleness, silence, and self-restraint. When you manage to practice all 3 of these with the highest faith and without secretly wanting a personal reward, they combine to become the ultimate Sattvic discipline. Finally, Section 6, Om Tat Sat and Asat, Transcendent Truth. As we reach the climax of the chapter, the Gita introduces a sacred 3-part designation of the Supreme Spirit, Om, Tat, and Sat. Let's break them down, because this is crucial. We start with Om. The text defines Om as the essential starting point. It's the sacred syllable uttered by students of Brahman, the ultimate reality, before they begin any act of sacrifice, giving, or austerity. By kicking things off with Om, they align their human action with the divine, right from the absolute first breath. Next up is Tat, which literally translates to that. The text explains Tat as the ultimate selfless intention. When a person performs actions of sacrifice or charity while uttering Tat, they're doing so purely for the sake of higher liberation. They're boldly stating, this is not for me. They're completely cutting the cord, detaching themselves from aiming at any personal fruits or earthly rewards. And finally, we have Sat. Sat translates directly to truth, reality, and goodness. The text describes Sat as steadfastness in sacrifice, austerity, and giving. Basically, any action related to these noble purposes is designated as Sat. It is the absolute truth that anchors our highest actions, making them real, making them endure, and making them spiritually permanent. So when you put it all together, Om Tat Sat is literally the ancient formula for spiritually perfect action. But the chapter doesn't end there. It ends with a very stark warning, introducing the concept of Asat. As you might guess, Asat is the exact opposite of Sat. It means untruth, unreality, or simply the void. The final verse boldly declares that any oblation offered, any gift given, or any austerity practiced without faith is called Asat. Think about that. No matter how grand, how expensive, or how viral the sacrifice might look on the outside, if it lacks true inner faith, it is completely void. The text is explicit here. Asat is nothing. It holds absolutely zero value in the hereafter and zero value here in this world. And that brings us to the end of our journey through Chapter 17. We've gone all the way from Arjuna's very relatable, very human doubts on that battlefield up to the absolute highest cosmic principles of intention. So I want to leave you with this thought to reflect on as you go about your day. When you look at the sacrifices you make, the charity you give, and the way you discipline your own body, speech, and mind, are your daily actions rooted in Sat, driven by pure truth and selfless faith? Or, if we're being really honest, are they rooted in Asat, done for ego, for show, and ultimately leading to the void? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning your intentions, and I'll see you next time.